Hello, it's Diane, and this week I've been busy making Traveler's Notebook inserts with Tim Holtz papers. So I'll just get right into them and show them to you. I have 4 of them made. One of them is for myself, that one I'm keeping, and these I will list in my shop. Let's see, this is the first one I made. This is from I think it's the Wallflower collection, and I like those birds. I put some gathered seam binding here and some buttons that came from my vintage jar of buttons that I got at the flea market. And this little Tim Holtz, what are they called? Chit Chat stickers. Flight. And there's the back of it. I didn't do anything to the back. I did not stitch this seam binding on because if you want to put it in your Traveler's Notebook, you might want to take the ribbon off, so it's just slipped through this stitching here, and you can just pull it right out. Inside there's a pocket stitched on. This is made with the Tim Holtz paper, and there's one of the Tim Holtz paper dolls and a little piece of, you could call this a Tim Holtz journal, a little piece of the Tim Holtz cloth measuring tape. Here's a layaway tag that I got from Denise's Tattered Dream Etsy shop. Copy dyed paper with a little ticket stitched on, and I believe this ticket was sent to me by Alette from the Netherlands. Stamping here, there's a little small page here with a piece of the Wallflower vellum, Tim Holtz Wallflower vellum stitched on as a pocket, and 2 little tiny tags that I made with my Cricut. Another piece of vellum here, it's just some striped vellum that I had. This is a page from one of those vintage books about fashion that I found at the library, which I purchased. I didn't cut up a library book. And a little ticket that I made. There's a tuck spot, and you can journal on that, and a little ticket. A lot of the tuck spots and tags and things are made with scraps of the Tim Holtz paper. Because when you're making a journal this size, you get a lot of scraps because it's a smaller size, a narrower size. This is from a music instruction book. And there's a piece of fabric glued on. I didn't stitch it because I stitch minimally on these vintage pages. And there's a Tim Holtz flower ephemera there. And I did stitch this fabric tag on at the top. There's a pocket stitched on. I did stitch that on, I think. Or, yeah, I did. No, I did not. I stitched around it and then glued it on so that I wouldn't perforate the paper too much. There's a index card, graph paper index card, copy dyed, and a scrap of the paper for journaling. Some stamping in the corners. Piece of the vellum with a bird's nest. There's gathered seam binding and the yarn that I carry in my shop. A guest check and a little piece of, this is an older set of Tim Holtz paper, but it's a whole sheet of these little vintage flashcards. And so I cut them up and used them in the books. Some washi tape, some copy dyed ledger paper. This is a page out of a book about birds that I got at a flea market. And because there's birds on the front of this, I put a page of that in here. And then I stitched this on as a pocket, and I had stitched on this little Tim Holtz piece of ephemera. And then inside it is this little booklet. It's got some vellum and some copy dyed paper. And it just goes right in there. There's just some fabric here. I didn't cover up the birds, but you could certainly put some writing paper here or photos or whatever. Fabric and yarn. More fabric. There's a little piece of twill tape up here. And journaling underneath. This envelope has some washi tape, and it was glued on as a tuck spot, and inside is a piece of the Tim Holtz paper with copy dyed paper stitched to it. and a piece of journaling paper. This is from the Edith Holden Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. It's September when I made this book, so I put the September page in there, one of the September pages. This is a piece of fabric. I love this, the colors of this and the birds on it. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. And there's a pin and some lace and a little tag and a piece of the Tim Holtz paper with copy dyed paper. And there's just some copy dyed paper for journaling here and some pieces of washi tape with some inspirational quotes. There's another one of those time cards cut out. Or not time cards, flash cards. Some journaling here, some scraps of Tim Holtz paper. More birds from the bird book, and there's another flash card with a little bit of trim glued on. This is a Stampin' Up! Envelope and card set. I bought them long time ago, and I don't do much with them, but I glued on some decorations from the Tim Holtz scraps and some journaling papers inside. I also have these, all the envelopes are cream color, but I have some pink cards and some cream colored cards. But the brown card you couldn't really write on, so I added those scraps of lined paper. Someone sent this to me, and I used up the last one in these books. I love that. The vellum with some fabric and washi, or not washi tape, seam binding. There's a piece of fabric up here as a tab. And the other side of that music instruction book, and you can see where the teacher wrote direction on it. And fabric and a little vintage doily and seam binding. Why can't I think of that word? I always have to stop and think, what is that? Ledger paper here, it's scrapbook paper, and a little piece of yellow eyelet, the fashion book, and a little vellum pocket. And this is a pocket, and I took one of my vintage vocabulary words cards. This one says live. It has a little eyelet tab, and that's stitched to copy dyed paper. And there we go. I think I knocked one of those buttons off, so I'm going to have to glue that back on. But there's this book. And I'm going to go through the second one just more quickly because it has pretty much the same layout, the same design. There are differences, of course, so I will mention them. This one I took the little Tim Holtz paper doll boy and made him sit on that little label-y thing. This is a stamp that I stapled on. More fabric with that pretty bird fabric. This one has a glassine bag because I wanted you to be able to see that beautiful image, and then I stamped on this white card. Green vellum here and a vintage doily. There's a pin up there. This one has the vellum, the green vellum pocket instead of a fabric pocket. So I put the pin up here instead of on the pocket. And this pocket, I stitched 2 of those flashcards together and then stitched it on as a pocket. Okay, and I might as well show this one. I think I can do this one quickly. This one has a piece sewn on the front as a pocket, and it has one of the Tim Holtz cards stuck in there. And there's a Tim Holtz doll, paper doll there, and some Chinese braid stitched on. I used brown thread for all of these books so it would stand out more. This one just has a little pocket, so it just has some skinny little tags in there. Another Tim Holtz doll. This one has a library catalog card in it. I think the second book that I showed only had this in the pocket, so I'm going to put one of the catalog cards inside that pocket also. This one has a library pocket someone sent me and a little card inside. I think it's a scrapbooking supply, but it's cute. This one has a little pocket glued here because I had to trim this paper enough to fit in, and I chopped the man's head, like half of his head off, so I covered him up with this little flashcard and put a couple little flashcards inside. This paper is actually from this tablet that I got at the Hollywood Tower Hotel, which is the Tower of Terror at Disney World in Florida. So I took one of those pages and made it a journaling spot in here. 2 tags in there. Oh, I didn't want to cover this up because I love both sides. So if you want to write on it, you can just glue some writing paper to whichever side you don't mind covering up. This says "Stay Curious" at the bottom. A vintage doily. This one has a piece of the measuring tape up here. And this one has another vocabulary card on it. Some washi tape. And there we go. Those are the 3 books that will be listed in my shop. Maybe I'll do a video of the book that I'm keeping just to show you. Thanks for watching, and I'll list my shop below.